and raise. Good, good.
Win some more pots, hey! Hey, what's up guys? I'm Pokerface Ash and welcome to my channel. I have a super exciting announcement. I just joined the Poker Bros team as a Poker Bros friend. What that means for me is I'm going to be traveling around the country promoting Poker Bros, and if you're there playing cash games or tournaments, come see me and I'll give you guys some free merch. I've got hats, shirts, and hoodies. You can also use my avatar on Poker Bros, which is pretty freaking cool, and I've heard it brings some run good. Anyway, I'm here back at my home casino. I'm going to play some 2-3 1,000 max buy-in, no limit hold'em. I'll see you guys in there.
Alright, here we go. Made it to Lone Butte, and in this session I did a lot of table hopping trying to make it to my final destination, which is a 2-3 1,000 max buy-in at a table where I didn't see a bunch of regulars. There was 2-2-3 tables going, and one of them had a lot of regulars that I didn't particularly want to play against, so the other table looked much better, so I had my eye on that one. There wasn't any immediate seats open, so I jumped on a 1-2 table, played a few hands, got dealt a bunch of napkin cards, finally got called to a 2-3 table, but it was the one with a bunch of regs. Well, luckily for me, I had just enough time to unrack my chips and then re-rack them as they called me to my final destination, the other 2-3 1,000 max table. Let's get into some hands. My very first hand I'm dealt is a very playable one, pocket nines in the cutoff. I raised to $15. The button and the big blind call, so we go 3 ways to a flop. The flop is 10-5 deuce with 2 diamonds. Pretty safe flop for my hand. We do flop middle pair here against 2 opponents. Yes, my opponents can have some 10x, but my hand does want to fold out a lot of overcards, and it benefits from betting because we can deny equity against overcards and flush draws, and we also can get value from slightly worse, including some ace high floats and things of that nature. This is a pretty dry board, although being 10 high, I think it's okay to bet a little bit bigger here, so I put out a bet of $20. Only the big blind calls, so when he calls for this sizing, he probably has a 10x holding or a flush draw. Nevertheless, we're headed to a turn card. The turn is an offsuit 4, he checks it over to me, and at this point, I think I just want to try and get to showdown, so I check back. The river is an offsuit jack, he checks again, and I'm very happy to show down my hand. I show my hand, and he flips over king 10 offsuit, so unfortunately we get outflopped on our very first hand, but we're going to move on to the next one. I folded for a little bit before finally picking up another playable hand where there's a raise under the gun to 16, and I'm next to act and look down at king jack of clubs. This is a hand that can go either way between a call or a 3-bet, but this time I'm feeling spicy and I raise it up to $45. Folds back around to my opponent under the gun, he makes the call, so we're heading to a flop in position and a 3-bet pot. The flop is king 10-7 rainbow. He checks it over to me, and while this is a rainbow board and a king high board, we flop advantage. In a 3-bet pot, standard sizing here would be about a quarter pot to 33%, but I decided to go a little bit on the larger side and I bet $50. My opponent calls and we head to a turn card, which is the 8 of hearts. He checks it over to us again, and this isn't a great card as some straights get there, some 2 pairs. Now I think range advantage splits a little bit, and our hand is good, but it's not great even though we have top pair with a jack kicker. I decide to check, and we head to our river card, which is the queen of spades. Our opponent leads into us for $150. Now I'm losing to a ton of hands. I'm losing to a lot of straights, 2 pairs, and sets, as he can show up here with pocket 10s, 8s, 7s, or queens. We lose to ace jack, king queen, king 10, and so on. In certain games, I think this hand specifically would be a call here, as our jack does block some stuff he can have, but in these games, these players just don't bluff enough, as I've said over and over again, so I make the fold, and he indeed said he made a straight on the turn. I don't know if I'm being results oriented, but I like my check a lot on the turn, but unfortunately, we lose this pot, but overall, I'm really happy with the way I played the hand, as most times we'll be printing money in that spot. So after losing our first couple hands here, it's time to top up, as now we are down about $170. So we top back up to $1,000 and we are in for $1,170. Alright, this hand was a bit of an interesting one. My opponent in this hand is someone who looks like he's fairly new to poker, but I couldn't really tell, so he was a bit of a wild card. In this hand, I have pocket sevens and a low jack, and I raised to $10. Only the big blind calls, so we're going heads up to a flop. The flop is 8-5-4 rainbow. He checks it over to me. This is about as good of a flop I could hope for with my exact hand. Pretty safe flop. However, this flop technically does favor the big blind over my range, as he does flop more nut hands than we do. But we do have a good hand, and we block the nuts straight, and we want to get value as well as bet for protection, as we can get a lot of worse hands than ours to fold. So I size up a little bit and bet $15, which is almost pot. He then check raises to $50. There's not many nuts he can have here except for 2 pair combinations. Sure, he can have sets as well, but I also block straights. So this raise seemed really fishy to me, and I had seen him try to take some bluff lines in earlier hands. Even if he was a fairly new player, he certainly was not afraid to bluff, so I'm not going to go away just yet, so I make the call. The turn is the Jack of Hearts. He checks, and now it's on me. I'm a little bit confused, so I decide to check and try to get the showdown. The river is the 3 of Hearts. He checks again, and now I'm super happy to show down my hand, expecting to win a decent amount of the time. And my opponent flips over Queen 9. So he was going for a little check raise bluff there on the flop with some overcards. Luckily for us, the board runs out in a way where we still win the hand and scoop our first pot here at the 2-3 thousand max at Lone Butte. Alright, this hand was a fun one. My friend Stephanie raises under the gun to $12. An early position player flats, and our labeled wildcard player decides to 3-bet in middle position to $50. It folds around to me, and I look down at pocket aces. When this particular player 3-bets in under the gun open, I assume he has a pretty strong hand, as most people just don't 3-bet enough, so his range probably consists of mostly the top pairs like kings, queens, maybe jacks, and possibly ace-king suited. I'm eyeing his stack, and he has right around $400, so I want to pick a size that kind of leverages stacks, and if he somehow decides to flat my 4-bet, he will pretty much be committed on most flops with a lot of his holdings. So I choose a sizing of $175. Stephanie folds, the early position player folds, and then Mr. Wildcard thinks for a little bit and then says the magical words all in. I can't snap call fast enough, and we head to see all 5 cards all in for a very, very nice pot here. The board runs out pretty nice, and I flip over my hand, and he goes to muck his hand and accidentally flashes a 7. So not quite sure what he had there. He indeed is living up to his nickname Wildcard, but nevertheless, we scoop a very, very nice pot here, and now we are officially in the green. In this hand, it folds around to the button, and he limps for $3. Small blind folds, and now I'm in the big blind and look down at pocket eights. This is definitely going to be a raise here. Being out of position, I want to pick a little bit of a bigger size, so I raise to $20. He makes a comment, well, it's his lucky hand, so I'm not sure what that means. I'm trying to go back in my memory bank and figure out what hands he's played tonight, but nothing's coming to mind, so we head to a flop of deuce, deuce, 9 rainbow. This is a pretty great flop for my hand, and this is also a board that I can down bet with my entire range, as it's a paired and disconnected board, so I put out a bet of $15. He makes the call, so we head to a turn card, which is the Jack of Diamonds. I think I can definitely keep firing here, but this Jack does hit a lot of his limp calling range, a lot of queen jack, offsuit and suited varieties, a lot of king jack, etc. So I decide to check, and luckily he checks back. The river is the 5 of clubs. Now I'm happy to check and call any bet here, as he might try to start bluffing with some of his holdings that missed, but luckily he checks as well, so we get to showdown. I show my pocket eights, and he showed ace queen of clubs. So at these stakes, it's so unpredictable when players limp call hands like that, when normally in a little bit tougher games, that's never a limp call, that's always just a raise. But at least we won a hand with our pocket eights, and this was actually the last hand we played at 2-3. As the table broke, so now we are headed to a 1-2 table, and stay tuned guys, because it gets crazy.
Alright, well shortly after I won that nice pot with the pocket aces, our table broke and there's no seats open for a bigger game. So I'm gonna jump in the 1-2 game and try to get some more fun hands. It looks like a decent table actually, so it should be fun, and gonna try and win some more pots, hey! Alright, let's do this.
So the 2-3 game broke and there was a 1-2 seat open, so I guess we're gonna jump in that. I left 300 at the 1-2 table and went to cash out the rest of my chips. We are in for $1,170 and cashed out with $1,348 for a profit of $178. Not bad. Now let's try our hand at the 1-2 300 max no limit table. In one of my very first playable hands, I looked down at ace queen offsuit in the cutoff. I raised to $15 and the small blind and the big blind call, which the big blind had had his fair share of alcoholic beverages on the night, so I'm hoping to grab some chips from this guy as he had a big stack and he was not afraid to put money in the pot. The flop is queen 9-4 with 2 diamonds. They check it over to me, and this is a pretty wet and dynamic board. There's lots of straight draws, flush draws available, so I want to size up a little bit here and I bet $35. Only the big blind calls, so I'm hoping that we can win some chips off of him, and we head to a turn card, which is the 10 of clubs. He checks, and I really don't like what I did here. I decided to check, but in hindsight, I should be making a bet here as a lot of his hands pair up on this 10, like Jack 10, etc. So I really don't like my check as we still have a very strong hand, and the only hand we are really concerned about is 9-10 combinations and if he somehow had a gut shot. But as played, we're heading to a river card, which is the deuce of clubs. He checks it over to me, and now, after he checks all 3 streets, I have to assume I have the best hand, so I put out a bet of $50. Unfortunately, he folds very, very quickly, but we do pick up a nice pot, and during that pot, they had actually called our table for a $100 splash pot, and wait till you see what happens. In this hand, the floor brings over the $100 splash pot to our table, and I'm hoping to finally pick up a playable hand because I never seem to win these things. The player to my right, who was a bit frustrated and lost a few pots, he decides to go all in for slightly under $100. I'm next to act, and I look down at pocket queens and I'm thinking I must be dreaming. So trying to decide what to do here, I think the only play that makes sense is all in. We deny equity and also can get called by way worse. People tend to lose their minds in splash pots, so I go all in for over $300. It folds around to the small blind, and he says he wants to gamble, so he goes all in for about $125. So we're going 3 ways, all in, pocket queens, with $100 of dead money in the middle. This is pretty sweet. Let's hold. The dealer deals the flop, the turn, and the river, and the way the board ran out, it felt like my hand was probably going to be good. There was no ace and no king, which I love to see. The small blind flips over ace 3 of diamonds. The player to my right didn't show, and I flipped over my hand as I was pretty certain it was good, and we scoop a really, really nice pot here at 1-2 in this splash pot. In this hand, the gentleman who was having a lot of alcoholic beverages limps under the gun for $2. It folds to me on the button, and I look down at the beautiful king queen of spades. The small blind and the big blind folds. The under the gun player snap calls my bet, which I've talked about before in previous vlogs. When players snap call bets, it usually means they have a very weak holding. Otherwise, they would take some more time to make a decision. We're going heads up to a flop of queen 8-4 rainbow. He checks it over to me, and once again, we're running pretty pure here at this 1-2 table as we flop top pair with a king kicker. We have a great hand. I decide to bet $10, but I think I would have liked a little bit of a bigger sizing, but nonetheless, he makes the call, so we head to a turn card. The turn is the 5 of clubs. He checks again, and now knowing a little bit more about his player profile, I think I can continue to extract value from very marginal holdings, so I put out a bet of $20. He makes the call yet again, so we're headed to a river card, which is a 7 of hearts. So now there's a 4-liner to a straight out there. Luckily, he checks, and I now am happy to check as my hand has downgraded significantly, and we're happy to get to showdown. He flips over what I think was a pair of 4s, I flip over my hand, we scoop this pot, and we are about to end this session at Lone Butte with a very, very nice profit.
Well, what a pretty surprising 1-2 game. Was not expecting that, and was certainly not expecting to pick up queens in the splash pot, $100 splash pot. So we were in the game for $300, cashed out with $720 for a profit of $420. What? Amazing profit at 1-2 there. Made a little bit of money in the 2-3 game. So overall, a great session. So I'm very, very happy. If you guys enjoyed the vlog, would you do me a huge favor and go all in and like, comment, and subscribe? It would mean the world to me. We're just getting started and it's only up from here. I'll see you guys next time, and make sure you find me in a poker room near you. I got the Poker Bros patch on. I'm repping Poker Bros. Come find me, grab yourself a free hoodie, free shirt, free hat. All right, see you guys next time.